Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. So, a new Democrat bill would ban Americans from holding security clearance if they attended MAGA events. That's right, they're attacking their political opposition. They're ensuring that their political opposition can never work in the government. This is not the work of democratically elected officials. This is the work of totalitarianism. This is the work of just authoritarians. They've tasted a little bit of power and now they want all of it. But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. Let's get started. So this is a bill from a Florida senator, U.S. Congresswoman Stephanie Murray. Murray's bill, the Security Clearance Improvement Act of 2021, would direct the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, OPM, to add another question to Section 29 that asks applicants whether they have ever been a member associated with or knowingly engaged in activities conducted by an organization or movement like QAnon that spreads conspiracy theories and false information about the U.S. government. You know what? I have no problem with that. If you're part of a conspiracy theory network, then you probably shouldn't work in the government. However, let's be a little more broad. Why are we focusing just on QAnon, guys? Let's focus on BlueAnon. Let's focus on Russiagate. Let's focus on the PP tape. Let's focus on what is this? Her husband is dead and she's in the ICU after ingesting chloroquine. We saw Trump on TV, every channel, and all his buddies, and that was safe, she said. Trump kept saying it was basically pretty much a cure. She implored Von Hilliard, educate the people. Well, it turns out she murdered her husband, right? She was murdering her husband. She hated her husband. Guys, if we're going to ban conspiracy theorists from the government, perhaps we should. Perhaps we don't want people who are easily manipulated involved in our government. But why is it that someone who supports QAnon, and it gets worse than this, it's not even just conspiracy theories, it's mainstream. If you've donated to a Republican Party, that is what they're trying to ban as well. But it's not just that. So if you follow QAnon, or if you believe that, hey, maybe not everything in QAnon is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, maybe there's a lot of BS, but there could be a kernel of truth within the conspiracy, because most conspiracy theories, right, are you have a little nugget of truth and then a bunch of circumstantial evidence that they use to support that truth. And it's not really evidence at all. It's just a bunch of coincidences. So lizard people, there's no evidence of lizard people, but there is evidence of high-powered Democrats basically being involved with underage sex trafficking of women. So I mean, really? It's just a hill we want to die on? Like, come on, guys. So I've even had friends who go, whoa, lizard people drinking the adrenochrome of young minors involved in sex trafficking. And it's like, well, the last part of your sentence was actually true. There are high-powered Democrats involved in the sex trafficking of young women. You have Epstein and the Clinton and Bill Gates and a bunch of Democrats involved with Epstein's Island. So maybe you can go, okay, that stuff is crazy, but maybe we should investigate the thing that appears probable. Lizard people, not so much. Drinking adrenochrome, eh. Child sex trafficking, there's already evidence that Epstein's involved with high-power Democrats. Let's see where this rabbit hole goes, shall we? But of course, they don't want to do that. Applicants would be asked to provide the name and address of the organizations and any positions held in the organization, a description of the nature of and reasons for their involvement with the organization, the dates of their involvement with the organization, and any contributions made to the organization. In addition, Murphy's legislation would require the security clearance process, whether the SF-86, the interview portion, or both, to ask applicants whether they participated in the January 6th, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol, or a similar Stop the Steal event. That's an issue. and the precise role they played in that event. Even if it does not constitute a criminal offense, attendance at an event designed to overturn the results of a presidential election and prevent the peaceful transfer of power raises serious questions about an applicant's suitability for a security clearance. You know what raises serious questions about an applicant's suitability for security clearance? Sleeping with a Chinese spy. Yet Democrats don't care about Eric Swalwell having a long-standing relationship with a confirmed spy of the Chinese Communist Party. So it doesn't make any sense. Let's have just one standard, guys. One standard. If you're not going to pull Swalwell off the Intel Committee, but you're going to pull Marjorie Taylor Greene from her education committee because she touted some conspiracy theories, it's not like she's banging spies, guys. Eric Swalwell owes money to the Chinese Communist Party, just like Joe Biden owes money. Well, his son is in business dealings with the Chinese Communist Party. So eventually, what happens if they say, hey, we're going to arrest your son, Joe Biden, unless you do X, Y, or Z? Kind of like what they did with that billionaire from Alibaba, right? They just arrested him because they said he was corrupt. As soon as he spoke out against communism, as soon as he spoke out against the CCP, they basically off with his head. They're going to do the same thing with Biden. They're going to do the same thing with Swalwell. Swalwell may very well be leaking classified information to the CCP. He has ties with them. He has access to some of the most sensitive information the United States has available. And yet, nothing to see here, guys. We're just going to whistle past the graveyard. We're worried about just crazy people on anonymous forums on the internet. That's what we should really be worried about, not high-powered politicians literally having ties with the CCP, with spies of an adversary. Let's put our priorities in order, shall we? Armed with this information, the U.S. government will be in a better position to make the discretionary decision about whether the applicant is reliable, trustworthy, of good conduct and character, and loyal to the U.S., and thus deserving of a security clearance. And loyal to the U.S., I think that's a typo. It should say, and loyal to us. Loyal to the Democrats. Because basically the Democrat platform, Joe Biden's platform, Kamala Harris's platform was America is bad. They are not loyal to America. They're spitting on the face of 75 million Americans who did not vote for them. They're saying you are bad Americans because you believe in a smaller government. You believe that what we're doing or what we proposed is wrong, and it's only been 2 months, and you look and see what's happening internationally, not even just what's happening within the United States. And of course, you're still having civil unrest. You're having more and more autonomous zones in the United States. You have the George Floyd autonomous zones where people are being murdered in the streets. But don't worry, guys, that's being directly funded by the Democrat government. Don't worry. Don't worry. Only people who didn't vote for Joe Biden is a threat to the United States, not an autonomous zone. But isn't that considered a coup? Isn't that considered an insurrection when you claim city blocks within the United States in a major city, an autonomous zone, and you don't allow police officers or the city to enter that? You threaten journalists who want to document what's occurring within that autonomous zone? Isn't that terrorism? No, of course not, because they're loyal to us, and by us, I mean Democrats. Ritchie said that the agent was put on leave and his security clearance was suspended because of his presence on January 6th. So there was a DEA agent who was basically fired from the DEA for having attended the Trump speech on January 6th in Washington, D.C. So he didn't even step foot on the Capitol, and he was still fired. So it's just getting crazy. You have AOC spreading conspiracy theories, claiming that Republicans wanted to murder her. You almost had me murder Ted Cruz, claimed AOC. So how does that show? good conduct and character. It doesn't. You have Ilhan Omar basically saying that white people are evil, even though she's married to a white man. And then as soon as it turns out that this person is Muslim and from Syria, she's like, oh, let's not focus on the race, guys. Let's whistle past the graveyard and we'll have a conversation of scary guns. And then you have one of the worst tweets of all time from Michael Moore. The life of Ahmad al-Alawi, Alisa, probably butchered that, shows that people can come from all over the world and truly assimilate into our beloved American culture. What an asshole. Screw this guy. American culture is shooting people? No. Maybe we should look into the motivation of the shootings, right? I believe it has to do with radical feminism, toxic radical feminism, repressing masculinity. I did a video on this earlier today. I believe that is the causal link between these shootings, and I'm afraid we're going to see more. You're going to see these 19, 20, 21-year-old men who don't know how to be men. They're dealing with an existential crisis because they have drive to succeed, but it's so repressed and suppressed from radical feminism. They're told that even wanting to be successful is toxic masculinity. Wanting to get good grades in school, wanting to get a good job is seen as toxic masculinity. So they're deadbeats. They play video games. They're addicted to porn. They don't seek women. They'd rather have a relationship with their hand than find a beautiful woman. And you think they're going to be happy? At a certain point, they're going to break. And like I said, when these young men break, unfortunately, there's a possibility that they're going to break everything around them. Because there's a story of you drop two vases and you drop one of them and it just becomes rubble. It becomes worthless. And you drop another one and it turns into a weapon. So you don't know what's going to happen when that person breaks, when that person snaps. Are they just going to become useless? Are they just going to kill themselves? Or are they going to be extremely driven? Are they going to resort to violence? So you don't know what's going to happen. But 10 years of repression, 10 years of being told the sin of being a man, it is your fault that America is the way it is. Because of men, because of people like you. And if you have any desire to be successful, that is a trait of toxic masculinity. And you better check yourself before we have to cancel you, good sir, because toxic masculinity has no place in 2021. And if you recall from my last video, toxic masculinity is not being masculine. His argument was, being masculine is good. Men need to be masculine. There is such thing as constructive masculinity, and that's the way men have been for thousands of years. Of course, you have evil men. You'll always have evil men. You'll always have evil women. It's just, it's a constant in life. You always have evil people. However, what the author of that article basically said was toxic masculinity is when men become so repressed in their masculinity that they become depressed and are just a shell of a man. They're worthless. They have no motivation, no drive. They have no idea what to do with themselves. And there lies the issue. But unfortunately, Democrats are just pushing these left-wing blue anon conspiracy theories. They don't care about finding the truth. They care about pushing a narrative. And that narrative has no foundation in reality. Because guess what? They know if they get to disarm Americans, if they have the ability to take away your right for self-defense, that God-given right, that right endowed by your creator. You don't even need to be religious to understand this. And I explained this, and amazingly, the person never responded. They said, voting is a God-given right. You know, if self-defense is a God-given right, so is voting. And I said, well, here's two situations. You live in England under a king back in the day when it was actually a king. And the king wanted to do something. Would you have the right? Did you have the God-given right, if you live under a dictatorial king, to vote to change it? Well, no, you don't have a God given right to do that. But if you had a soldier break into your home and try to kidnap your spouse or steal your children, do you have a God given right to defend your family? Yes, you do have a God given right to defend your family. You may face consequences for defending your family. Don't confuse a right to defense with a freedom from consequence, right? There's two different topics. So even if someone breaks into my home and I shoot them, depending on the state in which I live, I may not be free from consequences, even though I am free to protect my family. So people make the joke saying, "Oh, well, you don't need a gun. You can do whatever." It's like, no. Well, imagine if I beat somebody to death with a flower vase that I have sitting on my coffee table. Now, that's going to be a lot harder conversation, a lot harder testimony, a lot harder to prove my innocence from having bashed someone's skull in with a vase, even though the end result is the same, than if I were to shoot somebody and kill somebody who broke into my home. So the freedom of self defense is not the freedom from consequences of defending yourself. However, you still have a God given right to autonomy. You still have a God given right for self defense, self preservation, protecting your family. You'll never have a God given right to democracy. You never have a God given right to vote. And that is a conspiracy theory pushed by the left right now. They believe you do not have a right to, or you do not have a right for self defense, but you magically have a right to vote. You have a right to vote to take away somebody's self defense. And I saw a meme of this. I don't think I'm going to be able to find that quick enough, but it's basically, they talk about democracy. They attribute it to Ben Franklin, and I know it's wrong, but basically democracy is wolves voting. Well, basically there's four wolves and one sheep voting on what's for dinner, and it's just the wolves tearing into the sheep. Unfortunately, that's the way Democrats see Republicans. That's the way they see everybody else in the country. They say, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for your safety. And then as soon as they take away a means of your self defense, they will take away your rights. That is the conspiracy theory they're pushing. They're pushing that guns are bad, self defense is evil. If you want to protect yourself, then you're a bad person. You should allow people to burn down your business. You should allow people to break into your home and steal stuff. If you want to defend your home, if you want to defend your family, then you are a white supremacist according to Democrats. That's the conspiracy theory. And they should not have security clearances. So that's going to be it for now, friends. I'll talk to you all in a little bit. Have a good one. Bye.